What is up? This is the War Dog. Welcome to another episode of Comic Book Theater with my main man, JR. What's going on, JR?
What's up, War Dog?
Oh, same stuff. Different day, but it's a wonderful day here in Atlanta. We got an awesome guest. We got Josh from the Collector's Corner. What's going on, Josh? Or do you prefer
What's going
Josh?
on, guys? No. My wife calls me Joshua when I'm in trouble, and my mom does. So I'm cool with Josh.
All right, well,
I'm good. Yeah.
We'll call you Joshua when we get into the political topics. All right, John. So what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, we've got a full slate today as always. Tell you what, let's start with the newest news that's also the oldest news, because I think anybody who is a fan of the DC Black Label books kind of knew that this was coming. And by the way, my hat's off to Mr. Josh Biddle. He is the king of silly hats during videos on the Collector's Corner. So that's why I'm wearing this, is in honor of him. Anyway, back to on topic here. They just released officially that as of January 2020, that DC Vertigo will be no more. So for any of you fans that are out there that grew up reading some of the Sandman universe stuff, I know that Swamp Thing was in there with it. Preacher is another one that was in there. A lot of good, what a lot of people more consider to be indie titles that aren't really indie titles were there. You guys are about the same age as me in that neck of the woods. You have any Vertigo titles that you really enjoyed growing up, or any covers that you enjoyed seeing?
Me personally, I hate to say this, but I've never been a big fan of DC. I know of Vertigo. I know of, like you were talking about, Sandman. When I've purchased collections and stuff, there's always been a lot of Sandman and Vertigo stuff mixed in there. The only Vertigo, or well, I guess it'd be Sandman, title that I go after is anytime I see issue number 50, and I'm not sure what volume it is, but the only reason I go after that one is because there is a one-page McFarlane. He drew his version of Sandman in that issue. Since I'm a huge McFarlane fan, that's about the only one I ever go after when I see it. I couldn't even tell you what Sandman number 1 looks like, to be honest. So
the main key there is the first appearance of Death.
Yes, I do know that character.
That one, and that's the one that most people can identify the cover of. Probably one of the main books that Neil Gaiman has signed throughout his life is that, and I believe it's number 8. If I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody in the comments can let us know. That'd be fine, but would be fine by me. But yeah, Swamp Thing is one from Vertigo. Long and the short of it is, I said probably a year ago, somewhere in that neck of the woods, that if I was ever going to start collecting a line based on covers alone, nothing else, just covers, it would be Swamp Thing from DC and Vertigo, because those covers are issue by issue by issue. They're all really trippy, really amazing, and really intricate. So that's one of them that I have recently started appreciating. I know that some people will know that Gerard Way's Young Animal was written there on Vertigo as well. That's the guy who wrote Umbrella Academy. Like I say, I don't think that we'll be missing. I don't think we'll be missing much in the way of good storytelling, as far as I think that Black Label will take over for it in a quite a bit. The only downside is the Vertigo universe was a completely separate universe from Superman and Batman. Just there was virtually nothing else similar there at all.
Yeah, that's where
and
that. I
so
mean,
I think that might be. Go ahead.
oh, that's where the Black Label goes. I mean, Black Label has basically been Batman up to this point. So I mean, Vertigo was like DC's attempt at trying to kind of do the Image thing and capture some like other storytelling type genres in that with the Vertigo label. And I mean, it's unfortunate to see it go, but I don't know if they've. I mean, I think Image kind of blew them out of the water.
No, I'm since I'm not well versed in all this stuff. Now was Vertigo more of the darker, more risque kind of
Yes. Yeah.
storytelling.
More adult. It was
Oh yes,
definitely
more adult. I'm sorry.
more adult and much less superhero as far as that goes. I mean, okay, so Fables, Transmetropolitan, Sandman, Preacher, and I'm reading off of a list here from the article. Why the Last Man? Um, the I Zombie and Lucifer.
Astro City was pretty popular.
Yes, yeah. Well, and The Kitchen, that's one that that people have been specking on quite a bit because it's in development. Like it seems like everything is in development these days, but it's supposed to be in development. Um, the other thing that was nice um, about Vertigo is like kind of like Todd said with Image, a lot of those properties were creator owned still. So the creators, if they got a wild hair, they could just go on. Now, my understanding is the Gerard Way line, Young Animal, and then Warren Ellis's Wildstorm will still continue to exist. So there's that, but I mean, like I say, I don't know. I think that Vertigo is much darker, like than the general DC. The DC universe is. You know, so I think we might miss a little bit, but probably Image will between Image and Kickstarters, which is where I think a lot of those guys will end up going if they want to keep their own stuff out of the DC universe. They'll probably end up on Kickstarter.
Well, Kickstarter seems to be uh, bringing a lot of characters over there that either people can do what they want with, or some of them even, like I saw one the other day where they were there's a Kickstarter for the original creative Earthworm Jim, who's an old character from way back when in the video game and stuff, and he's bringing him back and doing all sorts of new stuff with him. So I mean, Kickstarter would be the perfect place for them to bring a character who's not going to have a world anymore to go on his own
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent. I know Todd is too of Kickstarter for any creator owned comic book intellectual properties. I personally think that crowdfunding is definitely. I don't think that it'll ever overtake DC and Marvel really, unless if DC and Marvel get extremely, extremely lazy, like even more so than they currently are.
The good thing about Kickstarter is that if they only have to make as much as the people out there want, so they don't have to overprint so many issues. That if they've got they only print, say, I don't know, 2,000 copies of whatever. Well, or as many as the people are buying. So they don't have to waste a bunch of time and effort and everything. They just print what's been purchased and then boom, they're done.
Right. Well, and as some people will speculate on some of these books, It's good and bad because you're not going to find those. You're not going to find most Kickstarter books in dollar bins, at least not for the next, 5 or 10 years, probably, unless if somebody gets upset at the creator of said book or whatever, which we all know. We all know how that goes as far as comic book nerds getting upset about comic books, right?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've 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 never posted anything that would be the least bit controversial. I know that's true.
Nope.
That's true.
I do not rock the boat.
That's true. You're not a boat rocker. That's
Nope.
true.
I beg to differ.
Not purposefully anyway. I don't do it on purpose.
Well,
If it happens by complete accident, I no claim to any of that.
Look, well, I mean, no, you're right, dude. Okay, I think we're going to transition over here just to get it out of the way here. We all have seen the AOC comic books that are going around. It's not just one. She's got quite a few of those political satire comic books out there. Devil's Due has one that got the cease and desist letter that is smoking hot all over eBay right now. I know that. Look, my personal opinion on them is they're political satire, they're comic books. People need to be adult enough to understand that it's a comic book and it may have some politics in the comic book, but generally speaking, it's political satire. And political satire cartoons they're basically as old as the United States, if not older.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's the New York Times has been around forever, and they've had political satire in their stuff since the dawn of time. I mean, satire's been around in some form or fashion, whether it's original, it's copying somebody else. I'm not a history buff on that kind of stuff, but there's no real way to talk about it without offending somebody anymore. It's joking around, and like. I'm about the least political person on the planet. I've never voted a day in my life. I stay away from politics because I'm not smart enough to keep up with everything, so I don't even bother trying. But I do know what funny is. And these comic books, they're not. And I see a lot of people throwing around their propaganda. I just recently I've copy and pasted the actual. The dictionary term of propaganda, and it's, for lack of a better term, it's use of politics to influence your political view on stuff. And like you said, these things may have a little obviously they're influenced by politics, but they take it. They're so loosely taken. I mean, it's not done in any kind of seriousness. So
right. It's all satire.
Yeah. I mean, and it's all joking. I mean, and I've used this example before. Mad Magazine's been doing it for years. I remember Mad Magazine used to be my go-to for funny stuff back when I was a kid, and right. I laughed at it all the time. Even then I didn't know politics, really paying attention to politics. So, but I thought it was funny. I mean, they're poking fun at everybody. They poke fun at everybody across the board. Democrat, Republican, Independent, whoever, doesn't matter. If somebody does something stupid, they're going to go after them.
I mean, look, and for anybody who wants to talk about the politics or a political figure being in comic books, one of the most mainstream comic books that there was ever printed was Superman versus Muhammad Ali, and the likeness of Jimmy Carter is right there in it. I mean, come on, man. They've had Reagan's Raiders.
Yep.
They had Spider-Man saving the life of President-elect Barack Obama. They have had Bill and Hillary in several satirical as well as mainstream comic books, and the list goes on and on. To me, to me, it is one of those that, for lack of a better way of saying it, a time-honored tradition. Somebody's going to throw the president out there, and it's going to have to be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or a political figure of any sort.
right. Yeah, I mean, it could be the president, vice president, one of the underlings. But and it doesn't matter if everybody loves the president or not. There's always going to be somebody that's going to poke fun at him, regardless of how good or bad they are. So to get that offended, and you know, one of the other members on the corner, are we allowed to say names on? I don't know.
Yeah, man.
Okay. So Huffman, he's, and I'm, you know, I don't have any like views strongly one way or the other, but you know, Huffman, he's a huge Trump supporter, and he buys all the books that, or not all of them, he's bought some of them that make fun of Trump. He buys a couple, or he enjoys some of the other ones. I mean, he's across the board. He knows their comic books. He understands they're making fun of people.
Right.
And he's cool with it. I mean, and that's the way you got to be. You can't take it seriously, because if you do, your life's gonna suck, man. I mean, it's just,
yeah.
I mean,
that's the way I feel about it too. And one of the reasons why I'm cool with it, regardless of which side of the aisle that they are making fun of, regardless of which side of the aisle you're a fan of. At the end of the day, it's just a comic book.
right.
It's an artist who is inspired by somebody who happens to be an actual living person, and you know, like you say, there's going to be plenty of room for them to be made fun of. There's going to be plenty of room for them to, you know, not even really necessarily be supported, but I mean, just, I don't know, for people to be so upset about it, to me, it tells me more about that person than it does the person who owns the comic book or the people who created the comic book. It, you know, it's this I'm offended culture that we have, basically, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and just recently there was, and I'm not gonna name the names or anything, 'cause I'm not wanting to get anybody in trouble, but there was a post made, where a political post, where the person that let me see, how do I say this without, so the person that I was talking to was actually in support of the certain comic, yet they still thought the post was propaganda, and they were offended by it, even though they supported the person that the post was made about. And it's like, how, I don't.
It lends itself to somebody just looking to be upset. Really, that's what it boils down to. Because, look, I you know, we'll talk a little bit of everything. We try not to get political on stuff, but the truth of the matter is that people just on both sides of the aisle. This is not a right or left thing only. On both sides of the aisle, look to be offended at every turn in every aspect of their life. And like you said, it's kind of a crappy way to live, frankly. If that's your motivating factor in your life, is that, man, that's just, dang, man, you gotta
And
cut that out.
it's if something bothers you that badly, and this is not just politics, but this is any comic. This is, you know, art, or, you know, music or whatever. It's, we're all adults for the most part. So if it bothers you that bad, don't say anything. Just keep scrolling on. Nobody's making you press those letter buttons and spell out sentences and create problems or an argument or whatever. Just, if it offends you that bad, either dip out of the page or don't say anything and just keep moving on and ignore it. I mean, I'm about as laid back as you can get. My wife has even commented that I'm just beyond, like, nothing hardly ever gets to me. She'll sit there and be spazzing out about something, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, we'll deal with it, whatever. So, you know, I let a lot of stuff roll off my back, like a lot of stuff. I mean, you kind of have to. You kind of have to have some really thick skin, or, I mean, I don't know. Everything's going to bother you, and especially since politics is such a hot topic, obviously, because it's I think it's more in comic books now than it has been in a while because of, what's going on. I mean, like you said, Reagan Raiders was a big one. And then honestly, I don't remember a whole lot involving in comics until more along Obama kind of jumping in. I don't. You mentioned something about Bush. I don't remember a whole lot of.
Well, this is the thing, and you guys know I'm a huge Tick collector fan. The Tick for the '96 election did 3 different alternate covers for a version of, I believe it was number 3 Chromatic, and one of them was for Ross Perot, one of them was for George Bush Sr., and one was for Bill Clinton. All 3 of them different, but even then, like I say, it's something that's been around for so long. I know for sure Clinton has been parodied in some and actually been the subject of other ones in the DC universe. He and Hillary are on the cover of, and it was not a major character. It wasn't Batman or Superman, but it was maybe Doom Patrol or Legionnaires or something like that they were on the cover of, and so like I say, it's been going on for almost as long as comic books have been around. I think that it's something where people just need to be adult about stuff. Be an adult. Everything will be fine. You don't have to, you know what I mean? Just exercise your right to continue to scroll on.
Yeah. What do you think, Todd? You haven't said much of squat, man.
Todd doesn't know how to unmute his microphone. Todd, you're muted still, friend.
Oh, am I?
There we go.
There we go. Okay, so
comic relief.
I know. I was doing the police academy. Michael Winslow. So, if a comic book has a political character, if it's geared towards a political person, right, like AOC or Trump or something, you know what you're getting. You know what you're buying. And, I hear a lot of people say often how comic books have always been political. And honestly, I've read hundreds of comic books, and I can count on probably one hand how many are really political. If Trump's on a cover or AOC's on a cover, I know it's going to be somewhat political. But, the only time that the whole political thing bothers me is if I buy a comic book and I'm reading it and all of a sudden, somebody's trying to enforce their politics onto me. Like I bought the Divided States of America, and I read that, and I got to the end of that book, and the artist or the author penned kind of a letter. Basically, to me, it was, it was far left wing, like crazy left wing, and I read that, and that turned me off the comic book. But if I look at a comic book and I see the cover is AOC or Trump or something, I can decide whether or not I want to buy that book because I know what that book's about. But it doesn't really bother me if somebody else buys it or somebody else likes it. If I don't buy it, it doesn't matter. The only thing that I guess, ever really kind of is questionable to me would be religious type things. Cause we had the whole, the DC thing where Jesus was supposed to be like a superhero. And then they ended up canceling that. So, that would be the only one where I think you're getting a little bit touchy. I'd be a little bit wary of going into the whole religious thing because, even if you can't depict Muhammad in a comic book. So, if you can't do that, then I would stay away from that. I do enjoy the political the political comics. I think they're fun. I think it's a fun thing to collect. You don't have to necessarily agree with those people or not. I mean, look, AOC is actually an attractive woman. So, I mean, if AOC's on a cover, hey, I mean, I can appreciate the fact that she's an attractive woman. I mean, a lot of comic books have attractive women on it. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why Devil Dude did the Wonder Woman parody cover that they got the cease and desist letter for. That I mean, and look, I that's part of her appeal, obviously, for the amount of coverage that she gets. Come on, man. There's a reason why they don't have a cat like me talking about anything politically on the news or any of those other things, other than the fact I have no earthly idea what I'm talking about. It's also because I'm not nearly as attractive as some of these other people are. It's just, that's part of it too. You're right, Todd.
Well, and the other thing too is it's such a hot topic. I mean, it's all over the news. It's all over the internet. It's such a sensitive area that on the flip side of just being the politics, it's also a really smart cash grab on any comic book company's any comic book company who wants to make some money will put out the variant covers for a hot topic, and so this is one of the ones that I ended up purchasing was the AOC, but it's the Mario version, and that's why I got it is because I'm a big fan of Mario, old school. I honestly I don't even know what the interior looks like because I didn't bother to open it up. I don't care. I like the cover. I think I flipped through one of the prior versions of it. And then, because of the politics, I ended up grabbing this one too, which is the Trump Space Force, cover. And, I'm not a Trump supporter at all but I love this stuff. The art is great. I love the way they did it. I mean, it would have been funnier if he would have done this and they would have incorporated like aliens into it, like the actual, from the movies, not just regular aliens, but like actual H.R. Geiger kind of aliens.
Right.
To me, that would have been hilarious. But I mean, if they know people out there either like it or don't, they know they can make some money. They put out one. They see what happens. They say, "Oh, we have some backup variants in case this is cool." People buy it. Then they start pumping out the variants, and people just start buying them like crazy. And it's smart for them to put a certain print limit on it, like the Wonder Woman one. That was a cease and desist. I'm sure they caught that and was like, "Ooh, this is really hot. We need to jump on it." So, and I don't know if you guys.
They reprinted it and put the cease and desist with the DC, not logo, but big DC desist version. That reprint, is that what you're talking about?
No, I didn't know they reprinted it. I thought they actually did. They
not the same cover. Not the same cover.
No. Yeah, it was a different one. It was the Mad Magazine parody is the one that they put that on the bottom.
Right.
But the newest one I was talking about, the one I posted today, was the Talk Bernie to Me. But he's the He-Man, and somebody who replied in the comments that they basically did a line for line trace, just put Bernie's head on it, and changed a couple of the colors, and they had a comic cover, and then it was from a I can't remember what year, 1983 or 84 He-Man poster, and they put a picture of that next to it, and then they superimposed one over the other, and it's not line for line, but it is really, really close. Like they changed a few shadows here and there, because I was really looking at all the way they drew his abs and his lats and everything, and it's the outer shape of him is almost spot on. They changed a few of the details on the inside, and I doubt they put a cease and desist on this one, but if they do, I wouldn't be surprised. But they only did 500 copies. So, I mean, it's it's money in the bank, man. I mean, they're not stupid to do it.
Well, and I harken back to the Barack Obama Spider-Man. They did like 5 or 6 printings of that
Mm-hmm.
book for Marvel. That was a huge seller. And by the way, this is the other thing that they did with that book, okay? And this is where you get to the big two playing a little bit of dirty pool. They released that the exact same month that in Infinity Crisis they killed off Batman. So think about this. They kill off Batman at DC, and Marvel is thinking to themselves, well, if they're going to kill off Batman, we need something that's going to be good. President-elect Barack Obama, boom, done. You know what I mean? Like I say, kind of a little bit of dirty pool there. And in my opinion, I can't imagine that was the original plan to go into that issue with. But I think they kind of had it in their back pocket and slung it out there. I mean, we're talking how many years ago has that been now? Gee willikers. We're talking before his first term because he's president-elect. But I mean, it was big news, and for them to go that many printings deep on it, a different variant cover every single time on it, or at least the specifying that was a different print every time. But man, that was a smoking hot book too. That was basically right off the rack. You couldn't touch them for under $100. Like,
yeah, and then now you can find a lot of the printings all over the place. There's still a couple, like the first printing,
first
and
print
maybe,
and like the 6th print are the two ones, and I'm going to look it up on CLZ because like I say, I know for sure that they did multiple printings, but I can't remember. It was either 5 or 6.
yeah, and even one of them, like I know they basically just flipped the art over. So instead of
Right.
Spider-Man being on the one side, it's being on the other, which
Right.
is so cheap, but still it's a variant. So got to get it if you're a completist.
Yeah, yeah, and that is, kind of like we're talking here. That's part of the money. That's part of the business of it all, and that's why regardless of your politics, we really, if we're going to be adult about it, you shouldn't have a problem with an AOC comic book or a Trump comic book or a Bernie comic book or even a Todd comic book. It's all basically the same. You're still muted, homie.
Okay. A Todd comic book would be really good, but I think I already wrote one of those. When I was when I was a kid, I collected Desert Storm cards, and I was excited about that. Not that I was in favor of wars, because I'm really not, but it was just a fun thing to collect. And I mean, it's kind of it's kind of the same things with these comic books now. A lot of people just collect it for that fun factor, and it gets lost when you tie in politics, the fun aspect of it. Like, okay, well, I could get this comic book with Trump on it or AOC on it, and I don't know. I'm a collector. Someday this might be worth something. You think back to like when George Washington was president. I mean, they probably made political cartoons about George Washington, and those are probably worth a lot of money. So as a collector, you kind of look at these things and you say, hey, at one point, these might be worth something. I mean, and like we were saying, I mean, some of them are short, small print runs. So, there's not a ton of them out there.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. There's not a ton, and that's going to be part of the collectability of them. By the way, it was 5 printings on that Barack Obama, and it's Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, number 583 for anybody who's wanting to double check my facts on that. Yeah, man, I've said it a million times. I'm a capitalist at heart. If it makes them money and it's providing somebody else a service that they want or need, Go do it, man. Go do it. As long as you're not as long as you're not actually physically hurting somebody in the process, go do it. Go do it, man. Have fun at it. Go do it.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, it's stupid for them to not jump in on it because the print run is low. They always state how many they're going to print, and in this case, the few that they've done have been 500. The comics, like the Talk Bernie to me, I think is depending on who you buy them from, but like I pre-ordered one, $10. So they're making bank. They're what 3-4 times more than what a regular comic is worth. They don't have to print nearly as many, and I guarantee they're going to sell them all.
Yeah,
and then they go to the next one. And they ride that wave until it's out, and then they go find something else.
Absolutely. So, I think we've kind of talked this one here to completion. Let's do a little bit of good housekeeping here. Here a few weeks ago, we had Cam on and Mike Leon on talking about the heist at Mile High Comics out in Denver, and it looks like they finally caught the guy. Now, somebody go back and double check me, make sure make sure whether I'm right or not here. I swear I thought Mike Leon said that he thought it was an inside job. I tried to get back and find that and ran out of time before we started the podcast this evening. But it turns out that the suspect that's currently in custody, former employee of Mile High Comics. Obviously, none of us are in favor of thieves, but the other thing is they upped the amount that he stole from 42,000 to 50,000. It evidently there was another comic book missing that they did not account for. Any thoughts on that, Josh?
I kind of half paid attention to. It was posted everywhere, so you kind of couldn't get away from it. I did read some of the articles. I saw some of the pictures. The thief was real specific on what he grabbed. He went for the top of the line. He went for the certain slab stuff. So it was either somebody who had been in that store before, who had cased it, who knew exactly what they were grabbing. Like you said, could have been a former employee, could have been a current employee, which would have been really stupid. Because if you buy a slab, and I only own a couple, I don't really care for them that much, but they all have barcodes on them, or they're supposed to anyway. The only way you're going to be able to sell them is not local. You got to go somewhere else to not get caught, and you got to crack them. Because if you have that barcode, there's a way to track them. And like I said, unless you go out of state and sell them to somebody else who has no idea who you are or where you got them from. It's if they were going to do this, they should have grabbed a couple of the high grade ones and then grabbed some just random stupid long boxes of whatever to make it kind of blended in together, or grab a whole slew of stuff and bleed the high ones into all the rest of the junk and kind of mess it up a little bit.
Yeah, try to pass it off that you bought that you're selling an actual collection.
Yeah, and if you get something like that, as close knit as communities are for comic books or anything really, if you no matter what it is, and with the technology these days, you'd have to sit on that stuff for a while before somebody would forget what was stolen, and you could sell it off without raising any eyebrows. That's like that. Go ahead.
Like you said, if they crack the case, though, you really don't know. You can't really tie it into anything. Anybody could have that book. If it's great,
yeah.
It's got a barcode on it. But if it's not, some dude could pull it out of his basement and all of a sudden, hey, I got this. And
Yeah, but even if you do crack it, like I said, you'd have to go out of state to sell something like that because anybody within the state, I mean, as much as those comic book shops vie for business with each other, they still keep each other informed. There's here in Columbus, we have like 6 or 7 comic book stores that have been here for a long time. All the owners know each other because I was talking to one of them months and months ago, and he even said, he's like, as much as we dislike each other and we try to steal each other's business, if somebody steals something from one of us, the one store lets all the other stores know, hey, keep an eye out because I got this stolen and somebody might try to be pawning it off to you, or a pawn shop may try to sell it to you because they sold it to them first. I mean, they keep each other informed about what's going on. So you would have to go out of state or at least far enough away from the city that they wouldn't have any information about it.
I was going to say, it is funny that you say that it needs to be that you bring up a pawn shop, because my understanding from reading the story there is and the story is on the NewYorkPost.com is where it's at. Basically, the way that this all went down was the guy went in and decided he was going to try and pawn it. And so, kind of like we're talking about here, you're talking about Avengers #1, Iron Man #1, Justice League of America #1, Spider-Man 50. I mean, these are monster books. These are not books that you're going to walk out of one shop and be like, you know what? I think I'm just going to walk into this other shop and pretend like I randomly found these. It doesn't work that way. Josh, you've been hunting long enough. I know I've been hunting long enough. I've seen one Iron Man #1 in the wild. I own one coverless Justice League of America #1. I've never seen an Avengers #1 in the wild. The Spider-Man 50 that I've seen, those are all in shops. You know what I mean? And that's just 4 of those books. Those books are, like I say, I just shake my head that somebody would be so blatantly, basically, for lack of a better way of saying it, stupid.
Yeah, stupid. If you were to walk into a pawn shop with one of those, you might get away with it. But and I don't know if this guy walked in the pawn shop with all of them in his hand or not. I didn't read the article. But like I said, if you walked into a pawn shop with just one of them and you could say, oh, it was my grandpa's or it was my dad's or whatever, they might believe you. And then you could get away with it. But if you walk into a pawn shop with a stack of those things in your hand, the pawn shop owner have to be just the biggest idiot on the planet to believe whatever story you hand to him, because if that's all you had and you didn't have any other ones to kind of mask what you were trying to do, like a smaller collection, then yeah, you're a big dummy.
Yep, absolutely. Could not agree more. And like I say, this is basically more of to give everybody an update on where they were with that. Now, I actually, if you don't mind, I want to transition into a couple. Just we were talking about these big, huge books that this guy stole. You guys, they just recently announced that J.J. Abrams and his son would be co-authoring. His son's name is Henry. They will be co-authoring a 5-part miniseries that starts in September, starring the Amazing Spider-Man and Mary Jane Watson. To me, the jury's is out on this one. We know who J.J. Abrams is as far as movies and stuff like that. His son is 20 years old. I wasn't doing anything really constructive at all with my life at all at 20 years old. So if he does anything remotely good at all, thumbs up for me, kid. You know what I mean? So jury's still out on this one for me, but I can't tell you I'm not going to at least be looking for it in the shops when they drop. And as always, I'm a fan of Spider-Man. More Spider-Man is good.
Yeah, I as much of a fan of Spider-Man as I am, I wouldn't mind it so much if they kind of cut back on the 50 billion titles that he's in or involved in. Uh, they I hate to say it, but I think the market's pretty saturated with Spider-Man, and I think it's starting to go towards the Venom side too, because Venom's starting to bleed into a bunch of stuff. But that's a whole other story.
And
But
don't expect that to change with the Carnage series that's coming out by Donny Cates. That's gonna do nothing but get worse here for the next couple of months at least, because that's gonna be the next big crossover.
Yeah, well, and see, the one good thing I like about the Abrams series, it's 5 issues and then they're done. So it's not like it's going to be a continuous thing where we're going to have to draw a whole bunch of stuff out. They can cram a pretty good story into 5 issues and then see what happens. Like you said, Junior is 20 years old, Henry, whatever his name is. So from the article I read, he's pretty big comic book fan. So hopefully he's been keeping up on what's going on. And he won't really futz it up too bad. The artist was, I believe it was a female, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I don't know if you can look it up.
Her first name is Sarah, and I'm going to butcher her last name. Yeah, I don't know. It's Pichelli.
Pincelli?
There, that's better than I did.
Okay. Well, so she's going to be the interior artist, and it was a gentleman who's going to be the cover artist. For me, so I'm a big cover artist fan. I don't really read interiors very much. There's very few titles that I do read currently. But since this is a 5-issue miniseries, so to me, it's more about the art. If the art catches my eye, then yeah, I'll give it a shot and I'll read it. Big Abrams fan. I love his stuff. Hopefully, the son has kind of followed in his dad's footsteps a little bit. We'll see. If he ends up doing okay, then maybe they'll throw him on another title, or maybe they'll give him another little mini 5-issue shot, extend it, maybe a volume 2. I don't know. But I'll give the first couple issues a viewing and see what they're like. If it's not that good, then I'll just keep those 2 issues and go find something else.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's not something that's terribly out of the ordinary for a father to be assisting a child in getting into the business, especially whenever it's a creative business like this one is. Writers helping their children. Stephen King has done it. There's plenty of them out there that Max Brooks is Mel Brooks' son. And that's the guy that wrote the zombie survival guide and World War Z.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's his son.
Mel Brooks, the comedian.
Mel Brooks, the comedian.
No kidding. I had no idea.
His kid. Yeah.
Wow.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, mind you too. Okay. I read the book on recommendation from a good friend of mine who said, if you want to get into something that's cool and zombie related, but after you read it is not about zombies really at all, check out World War Z. I'm like, okay, kind of file that back into the brain a little bit. And just so happened to be in a used bookstore, grabbed the paperback copy, read it cover to cover, and was blown away by it. Called him, and I'm like, dude, that is amazing. That was great. Movie is based on the book, but not really close to the book at all, really.
I saw the movie. I thought it was horrible.
The movie was not as horrible as it could have been. But I don't know. I didn't think it needed somebody like Brad Pitt to be in it, because the whole time you're looking at it being like, oh hey, there's Brad Pitt and zombies.
Yeah, you're
Brad Pitt
expecting
and
a little bit
zombies.
more.
Yeah, look. I firmly believe that you find somebody that is cast the right way, and you find a good director, and if the writing is good, the subject matter is good, it'll be entertaining. You then make a new star. You don't have to have star power necessarily
To push the movie.
Yeah. Eventually, if it's good, it will be known. And yeah, I will rewatch it occasionally, but only as like background noise. That's how I watch it. So yeah, that's just me. Todd, how do you feel about this about this Spider-Man book? You looking forward to it, or is it something you're just going to kind of wait and see how it does?
I'll probably check out the first one and possibly read it and see how this kid does. I mean, you know, even though it's J.J. Abrams' son, I mean, if he's a good writer, I want to check him out. Like Josh said, you might check out one or two, and if you don't like it, you stop. It's kind of like with Major X. I bought the first two, and I was kind of excited about it.
Major X.
And then the next, I didn't buy the next one. The only thing with J.J. Abrams is he never finishes anything. He always starts stuff, but he never finishes. Like Lost.
All he's got to do is 5 issues.
Yeah,
that's all he's got to do is 5 issues, though.
I just want to see.
No. Is Abrams and son writing it together, or is Daddy just kind of backing him up and the son doing more of the writing? Because
they're talking like it's co-authors. They're talking co-authors is what it is.
Yeah, but are they talking co-authors and son writing it?
No, I get it. Look, it definitely looks to me as though the son is the driving force behind it, and Dad is kind of along for the ride. But if Dad is direct, if you called him Junior, which is hilarious, so we'll stick with Junior. If Junior is really, really gung-ho about wanting to tell a story, Dad kind of helps him put some interesting twists and turns along the way. It could end up being amazing. It absolutely could.
I get the impression that, like I said, from the article I read, the Junior is like he's younger, he's more hip to everything. If he's been keeping up with stuff, he might have his finger on the pulse. He writes a good story, and Dad kind of proofreads it because obviously he's been in the business longer. And then, like you said, gives his little daddy tweaks here and there to kind of give it that little extra oomph, and then gets published and so on and so forth. And it's only 5 issues, so he can't really wreck it too bad.
Right.
Well, or like you said, it might be gold, and then he just runs from that. He's fresh. I don't, as far as I know, I've never seen him write anything. So this will be like his first dip in the pool.
How much could he have written, though? Really, like I say, at 20 years old, you're a junior in college. If for most people in that neck of the woods, there, you or going into your junior year in college. It does definitely though sound like Junior is the definite driving force behind all of this. But to put Todd's mind at ease, they're talking in the interview that I've read here. It looks like they're talking in the past tense, like as in the questions, how was it to work together on this? And Henry, or Junior as we like to call him here on the Comic Book Theater podcast, Junior says great. And then JJ says, I told him he has to say it's great. Well, it sounds like maybe their 5 issues are already in the can ready to go. It's just a matter of releasing them. So I
Do you
don't
know
think we
when
have to
this is
worry
going
about
to
that.
happen? When are we going to see this?
It starts in September. It starts in September. Now, look, I don't want to be you know me, man. I don't like to be super critical of anything as far as before I see it at all. You know, I try and give things a fair shake. I know Biddle here is kind of a fan of cover art and stuff like that. The cover by Oliver, and I can't say his last name either. But the cover artist, it's not doing it for me, honestly. The
But
cover,
see, the cover art isn't going to match the interior, so.
yeah,
But see, that's the thing. Cover art is supposed to draw the person to the comic, and then they're supposed to get into it, which I've been bamboozled with a bunch of times because the cover art has looked awesome on some, and I flip it open, I'm like, wow, this is garbage, and I put it back down.
that's one of the reasons why I love a story like Kingdom Come. Okay, you get pulled in by Alex Ross art on the cover, and then oh yeah, by the way, all 4 issues of that is nothing but Alex Ross, just beautiful, full of Easter eggs, full of Elseworld Easter eggs and DC Easter eggs all throughout it. I know you said you're not really a DC fan. If you ever get a hankering to pull a DC book out and read a nice little short 4-issue mini, or even like Todd said, there's a audio book with the comic lay underneath of it, done
Hmm.
on YouTube of Kingdom Come. It's spot on, dude. It's really good. But yeah, like you say, the interior could be amazing, but this cover that they're showing in this story isn't really doing it for me. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I saw the cover. I didn't really catch mine. I didn't, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't see any of her art, and I may have to look her up and see if she's done anything else or what issues she has done to get an idea. Honestly, and like I said, I'm not a huge reader, but if the cover art isn't that great and the interior isn't that great, I'm probably going to give it a pass because the story could be about as amazing as it gets, but if it's not matched with at least some what's the word I'm trying to think of, some halfway decent art, then I'm not gonna waste my money.
Right on.
I can find a whole bunch of other stuff that's I can spend my money on that's well worth it. So
Right on. Well, and one of the other reasons why we wanted to have you on, Josh, and I'm going to transition slightly, but we're going to stick with Spider-Man here. The one of the books that is basically taking quite a few collectors, not necessarily by surprise, but is starting to be more sought after than I originally expected it to be, is the Dollar General Spider-Man Homecoming book here that was put out by Kellogg's. Now, and the reason we having you on is because I know that you're a guy who enjoys promotional comic books, and down there you can see it for those who are looking on the old YouTube there, the Kellogg's logo, and then the I believe it's the Literacy Foundation is the other co with that. Um, you know, it's one of those things where I don't think that there was good communication with the distribution on this one, because I'm finding either people know what's going on with it and are just glad that people are interested in it at all, and then just letting folks have what they want out of it, or they know nothing about it at all, and because they know nothing about it at all, you can't get it. You know what I mean? And by the way, too, since we're still talking about it, this is going to be going in the giveaway for the podcast to help with listenership. Going in the giveaway, guys. If you're looking for one, you don't want to pay the $8 or $9 it is on eBay plus shipping to get one of these. and you don't have you don't have the availability otherwise, this is going to be one of the books that goes in the giveaway. But Josh, I know, like I say, you're a guy that's into the promotional comics. How do you feel about promotional comic books going on eBay at such a high price while they really still should be available on the shelves?
That's with it. Okay, honestly, I think it's stupid. I mean, something, and I guess maybe they're hoping that they're going to sell them to the people who live out in the middle of nowhere that don't have a Dollar General. And I hate to tell them this. Well, okay, so Dollar General only goes so far west in the United States, and then they kind of peter off. But anywhere from Midwest to East Coast, there's a Dollar General on every other corner. Now, whether they have these comics or not, I don't know. I know I've seen a couple people post online where they just couldn't find them anywhere. Their managers had no idea what was going on. Other people walk away with just fistfuls of these things. They're 2 cents a piece to buy if you don't want to purchase cereal and get one for free. So the people who are, they're flippers, they're speculators, they're trying to, make a quick buck. I can't fault them for that. I don't particularly agree with it, but I'm the kind of person who I will flip something if I can make my money back and maybe a couple of bucks more, or I will break even. I'm cool with that. I'm not greedy. So when I ended up buying some, I was willing to just trade some people a certain comic that I was interested in. That's a dollar issue. And, that we would each pay shipping and we would pretty much break even. And they get a comic, I get one, everybody's happy.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even enter my mind to go on eBay and try to sell them for, I don't know, however much they're going for now. I had a couple people tell me how much they're going for, and I was like, that's ridiculous. But there are people out there who either can't get to them or don't know somebody who can get them for them. So it's kind of supply and demand a little bit, but it's kind of a real crappy way of doing it.
No, I agree that a promotional comic generally is going to be a giveaway, is generally what it's going to be. Now, having said that, how many times are you rummaging through the dollar bins and you find the late 80s or early 90s Supergirl comic book from Honda, or there's an AIM toothpaste comic book, or now I will say this though, if you go back into the golden age, there is I believe it's a Robin Hood, and I will tell you guys, if you're not watching Comic Tom 101's his channel, I highly recommend it. They do the CBSI Hot 10 list. It'll be released on Friday nights, that kind of thing. But also, they do the honorable mentions. And a lot of times in the honorable mentions for that hot list, it's over and above the top 10. Just books didn't quite make the cut for the top 10, but a lot of times they're golden age, they're one-off kind of books. They're books that you just generally don't see a whole lot on eBay ever or out for sale. And one of them that came up last month, I believe, was a Robin Hood comic book from the golden age that was a promotional book for flour, like baking flour. But it was like I'm probably misremembering it. I think it was graded at a 7.0 or something like that, and it went for like 4 digits, man. It was a very pricey book. So I can see where, as age gains on them, being, seeing a couple of those books show up. But I'm kind of with you where I think $8 a piece on eBay for a book that the person either bought cereal that they're then going to eat and got it for free, or they paid 2 cents a piece on it. That is a ridiculous profit margin. Ridiculous.
Yeah, and especially since I'm sure there's bunch of them printed. Like when I bought mine, I actually physically bought a box of cereal so I could get the first one, and then I went back and bought the rest of them for the 2 cents that they were, selling them for. So I kind of did my bit to give Kellogg their money,
Right.
and then got the rest for myself. But since it's so new, and I know it's promoting the movie and all, promo stuff is weird. Like my promo collection kind of runs a gambit. I mean, I have a lot of Spider-Man stuff, which is where it all started. With, like you said, AIM toothpaste. My go-to anytime I see a copy is the. Actually, I think I have one here. This is like my one go-to is the Spider-Man or McFarlane. Skating on Thin Ice. It's one of
I think there are
10,
4 of them.
five. There are five issues. Yes.
Okay.
But this, I mean, and he only did the cover art to this. He didn't do any of the interior at all. But it, so and even that, I mean, McFarlane did the cover, but it's not really. I mean, you can find dollar bins all day. So for promos to be expensive or to be worth a lot of money, age has a lot to do with them. Rarity, it's pretty much like with any comics. But like the other day, I just got one. It was and I completely forgot I had purchased it until I got it in the mail. It was a promo for cerebral palsy awareness, and it was a Beetle Bailey comic from the 70s. And it's it was $1.
Right.
It's not in high demand. But like you said, the Golden Age stuff, where it wasn't meant to stand the test of time. It was meant for kids. It was meant for people to read it and abuse it and, not really take care of it. Right, basically trash it. And for something to be in that higher grade, I am not surprised at all that it went for that much money.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the funny thing about it, too, is the other reason that I'm bringing it up, too, and I brought up CBSI, Key Collector app actually showed up on their Hot 20, I think it was last week. There is a Federal Reserve bank promo out of Boston that goes for like $400 as well, but it's extremely scarce. I think there's maybe, I want to say 2 or 3 sales on eBay in the last month or so. Anyway, being the hunter that I am, I didn't. This is not it. This is not it. But this is the kind of stuff that Federal Reserve out of New York, and they're like, I think this is like a 6th or 7th printing of it from the 80s or whatever. But I'm sure that if you found the first or second printing of it in comic book form, it would be much more desirable. And the funny thing about it is I found 7 different, all from the Federal Reserve comics, all in the same stash. And I'm like, well, heck yeah, man, put that in the stack of things as I'm buying stuff, because at that point I had seen it, and you know how it is whenever you're hunting. You don't necessarily just want to pull out your phone, whip up Key Collector's app, and be like, let's take a look and see if that's a $400 comic book that I'm paying $1 for. You know what I mean? But on the flip side too, they're cool books. They're
Yeah, I mean,
to look at.
there's a lot of promo stuff out there that and for me personally, I almost don't care what it is. As long as it's a promo and it's in decent shape, I'll buy it, even as dumb as it looks. There's one I purchased, and it wasn't so much as promo as it was like raising awareness for stuff, but it was a comic book. I think it was an indie one. It was something to do with like a Bicycle Man, where they're showing you how to take care of your bike. It was a 10-speed actually. and road safety and things like that. And I had never seen it before. I don't know who drew it. I don't know who published it. I don't care. It was goofy. It was a buck. I snaked it in a heartbeat, and I posted it up somewhere. And this was a year, 2 years ago, and people were just they loved it because it was just one of them weirdo things that you don't hardly ever see. I had another one where it was some kind of energy conservation. Another one where it was like World War II pamphlet awareness stuff. I mean, it's if you hunt hard enough, you can find this kind of stuff, and it's not weird. It's interesting what they'll make into a comic book form, because comic books equals kids equals they'll read it equals it'll raise awareness of whatever subject you're talking about at a younger age.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and they did during World War II use comic books for war propaganda, basically. That is, and whether it fits the textbook definition of propaganda or not is, to me, a little bit less. Is a little less. How can I say it? It's okay that you use it as propaganda in that way, because I mean, dude, you have very stereotypical portrayals of other ethnic groups. Whenever you're looking at the Pacific theater, if they're doing those kind of covers, or the heroes are helping out our troops, I mean, I'm going to say it because we all know what it is. It's going to offend somebody eventually. What was it? Slap a Jap?
Yeah.
Or whatever, that cover. Come on, dude. We all know what that was. And in that time, you kind of, I'm not saying it's 100% justified, but I can also see a reason for it. You're trying to win a war, and none of us have lived through that kind of war. So I'm not faulting. I'm not man enough to fault those folks for having to go to that place mentally. I'm not going to fault them. Now, am I in favor of it today? No, it's not necessary today. But it might have actually, in fact, been necessary to dehumanize the other side in order to get to the place where you're okay with things that happen during that kind of a war. But then the other ones of all of the portrayals of the Nazis and punching out Hitler and those kind of things, definitely war propaganda. Now, and again, I don't think anybody would be like, "Oh man, I don't think you're being quite fair to those doggone Nazis. That's just not very nice." You know what I mean? But that is still kind of propaganda. But still, I think it, in a way, it does kind of fit into the promotional aspect, even though it's part of the storyline. You know what I mean? So I think that they've been around. It's been around that way for years and years. Todd, do you have any promotional comic books that you collect or anything like that? Now that you're unmuted.
No, not really. I mean, I enjoy listening to you guys talk about it. I like the historical nature of the promo comics, and I like the small print runs. I've never really focused on that, but I'm kind of a Wednesday collector, like, for the most part lately. Wednesday comes, I get excited. I go to the comic book shop. That's when I buy my comics. So I mean, that's my thoughts on the promos. I can't really offer too much good stuff on this one.
It's all good. It's all good. And by the way, I do have enough that if you need one of those Dollar General books, if you can't find them out there in the ATL, I got your hookup, man. We're good there. I'm not going to leave you in the lurch there.
I'm actually, after this conversation, I might have to go to Dollar General tomorrow and see if I could find any.
Buy a box of cereal.
When did these come out? Like how long ago?
Well, see, that's the funny part about it.
It's hit or miss with some of the stores because there are some that have had them for. I think I got mine like last weekend, and then some that are just barely getting them now. I know Donald. I can never pronounce his last name because it's French, but yeah, Lamoureux. He lives way up in Vermont, up in my old neck of the woods. He had to hit 3 different stores before he finally found them. I live in Ohio. I got Dollar General stores coming out the wazoo around here, so I could probably walk away with a tote full of these stupid things. I have a couple weeks at least.
I have a grand total. I have a grand total of 50 of them. Okay, that's how many of them that I have. Now, mind you, though, that's because all over Southwest Missouri, I can hit multiple Dollar Generals. And the truth of the matter, though, is the first one that I hit, I bought 10 from, and they had already had them on, and this was last week. They had already had them on the shelves for a week. And then you go somewhere else, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to put those out tomorrow. And the only reason that they hadn't I guarantee the only reason they hadn't put them out is because nobody told them to put them out, and nobody came in asking for them. You know what I mean? And I've got enough friends who have worked retail before that I know that you're going to have some managers that look at it as nothing but a headache. And if you're willing to buy them at the 2 cents a piece, they're going to sell you every last one of them, not blink at it at all. They may even tell you to just go get them and take them all and be done with it, just so they don't have to worry about it anymore. I mean,
yeah, it's just one more display they got to deal with, and shelf space, and I saw one person was even trying to see if the store would sell them or give them the little display they were in.
Stand up.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, look. Okay, again, I've worked in retail. I've had friends work in retail. We all know what's going to happen with 99% of those displays at the end of the day. They're going in the recycling bin. That's where they're headed. Nobody in that store wants them. They really don't want to have to deal with them. So yeah, chances are really high they're either going to be willing to sell them to you or tell you to take them so that they don't have to break them down and chuck them in the recycle. I mean, that's where it comes down to. So yeah, if somebody's willing to, let them do it, man. So
hey, real quick,
yeah.
one thing that I wanted to mention, and I know when we were talking about promo stuff, there's certain comics that I don't. So for me personally, I kind of mush together promo and awareness comics kind of in the same sort of category because it's
right.
Yeah, I don't really know how to describe them, but one example I wanted to talk about real quick was the I don't know if you can see that very well. They're the Spire, the Christian comics, or the religious comics.
Yeah.
To me, they're kind of promo-ish. They're not promoting a certain. They're promoting a.
They're promoting Christian ideology. That's
yeah. I mean, they're not promoting a thing so much as an idea.
Yeah, not a product, but yes, an idea.
Yeah, not a product. And these, there's a certain group of people, not just me, but others that will go after these too. Now, again, I don't read these, but I get a kick out of them. They're entertaining as far as I'm concerned.
You need to read them. You do.
I do.
Yes, you might learn.
Well, okay, so I have read one. I've read one of them, and it was probably the most expensive one that I've come across. Is obviously the one that has the swastika? Yeah, the Hansai.
Hansi, yes.
Yes, or Hansi, however you say it.
Is that one in English?
Yes.
Yeah. It's in English. It's just people freak out about it initially because of the way they portray the cover. It looks like it's propaganda for Nazis, not against Nazis. So people see it and they're like, "Oh crap! How could you want to blatantly go after that? And why would you want to read it? And yada yada." But when you read it, it's actually the girl is fighting against the Nazis the entire story. She tricks the Nazis, and in the end, she ends up getting away from them and stuff, and fighting against them. But because and it's kind of weird that like you have a bunch of the older what are the Marvel characters who have like an NDC too, the old Wonder Woman, Invaders, that have that are fighting Nazis on the covers, and people generally don't really put too much of a stink about them. I mean, they just don't care. That was the time period. But then since something, and I believe, let me see the indicia on these. These came out in the 70s, so this is way after World War II. There you go. Cross and Switchblade.
The Archie's, the guy who did Archie's did a lot of these. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. Well, and it's as far as I've ever seen, Al Hartley has always been the cover artist, and I'm pretty sure. Yep, and I'm pretty sure it's the interior artist too. He did all of these.
Right.
So it wasn't just Spire Comics. It was also there was another company that did them before Spire, and then Spire took over. And for the life of me, I can't remember what they were now. But he did them back before Spire took over. And it's not just I mean, it's Spire Christian Comics, but I honestly don't know if these Archie ones were religious based or if they were just like good guy kind of stories.
Well, their build is Christian Comics. They're built that way. But yeah, I think it's more just the overriding principle of be a good person kind of thing. But you're talking about that. Marvel had the Nelson imprint.
Yes, I have that one too. Yep.
For those two. The Hansi book. Any of our listeners want to gift me one of those Hansi books? I will take them off your hands. I don't mind the controversy of the swastika, because to me that story is a story of redemption.
And they are hard. They're hard to find too, especially in the wild.
You know what though? This is the other thing about those. They were purchased with the intent of being literature that you pass out, that you give away like a tract, like a pamphlet. Hey kid, here you go. I bought this comic book. I think you might dig it because you're sitting here already reading an Archie comic book. Let me show you this Archie comic book. That's what they were. That was the marketing plan there. Okay, so finding them in higher grade, nearly impossible unless you find a church that has a box of them that never sold them or never gave them away.
Yep.
I would love that, by the way. I would buy all of them, no problem, no questions asked. But the other thing too is there are different price variations on all of these too.
Yes. Between 2 and 3.
Well, there are at least 3 of them that I know of on the Hansi. There's a 69, a 49, and like a 37 cent. The highest price one is the most rare of them, if I'm not mistaken. But I will tell you, I was looking at CLZ the other day. They don't have the price variations, so that's going to be something that I email them about. Maybe not tonight, probably tomorrow at some point. But there are price variations on all of those. And so, we talked about earlier, if you're a completist, you got to look for all those price variations, because they basically reprinted them as they ran out of them, because they looked at them as instructional or religious literature. They weren't worried about the print run was 400,000 of these. They were worried about, okay, well, we just ran out of them. We now have to start the presses back up and reprint more of them. The price is now going to be 49 cents instead of 39 cents. You know what I mean? That's how that all worked out. That's the only downside to it is there's really no way to know for sure how many of them were out there. And there's really no way to know how many of each price variant was out there. You just kind of take for granted by the time they got to that third printing, they were slowing the presses down a little. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've never seen, even with the other titles that they've done, I've never seen anything more than 2 or 3 different price variations on them. You know, whether it's Archie or, you know, Cross and Switchblade or whatever. And CLZ it's usually my go-to for that kind of stuff, but even they, especially with promo stuff, don't have a lot of the variations, so you kind of have to put them in yourself or hope somebody else has done the same thing. And can, you know, you can kind of go based off of that or Google it and see if somebody else has kind of asked the same question, somebody's answered it.
Right. Well, and just like that, I've said this a million times too. The comic book hobby and industry both are so expansive, so huge, so gargantuan. Even if you're getting paid for it, it's your job. It's nearly impossible to be an expert on every single thing. You know what I mean? It's just impossible. Like if it wasn't for Nick over at Key Collectors and CBSI and Comic Tom 101 and some of these other places, there are tons of these books. Robert Casey is another guy that I highly respect on the corner. That dude, seriously, I've said it. Anytime I sound like I'm smart, I'm basically copying what Robert told me. I'm basically just parroting what he said because he's on top of this stuff. He knows this stuff, and yeah, man, it's just even CLZ is not going to be perfect, and that's
no, and that's why they allow people to upload their own stuff, because they know they can't cover everything. So, right. And especially like the promo stuff, a lot of indie titles that I found are so indie, they don't even show up. So I would have to basically initiate the run of whatever it is. Right. And don't even get me started with the foreign ones, because I mean, CLZ does have some foreign runs in there of some of the major, you know, Spider-Man and a couple other ones.
X-Men,
but
kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, again, there's so many countries out there and so many. I mean, it would be, like you said, it would be impossible for them to cover everything. They can't even cover everything that's in America, much less anything outside of America, hardly.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing with me with CLZ is that I love is their customer service and customer support. Whenever I email them, they're normally back to me within 24 hours, either with the solution to my issue or telling me, hey, we're aware of this glitch or this shortcoming, and we're working on a patch for it. So next update, it'll be fixed.
Do you know what message? I mean?
That's what's that?
Do you message them and tell them to add a book?
Absolutely, and that's honestly. Go ahead.
Their response. What's that?
Yeah, we'll get it added. Now they do request that if you actually have a copy of that book, that you then provide them with a high resolution scan. So, you know, drop it in your most all printers anymore are scanners as well. So you drop it in there, get a high res scan of it, and then I try to do my dead level best to put in there all the information from the bylines for everybody. Who was the writer? Who was the penciler, inker, colorist, cover artist? Any of that information, so that they have all of that to add in, and that way they've got everything to go on. Now, you know, I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm not always perfect about doing that, but most of the time, whenever I can't think, I'll just put it like this. I can't think of a time that I've asked them to add one that they haven't added it.
Now, can't you upload it to their database too, just from the app itself?
You can, and probably Elwin's going to be cursing at me because he'll end up with a dozen emails, 5 minutes after the podcast is concluded, after it goes live, that people just bombarding him with stuff to add to the app. But yeah, I mean, you can, but this is the thing with doing it. There is, I don't believe that it then goes public. In other words, I don't know that other people can actually access it.
So it would just be
It would just be for my
just
collection.
be for you.
It would just be for me. So I would upload. But there again, you know what? I think maybe we can attempt that.
Because I know I've looked up some comics, and I can tell for sure that it's not a scan. It's somebody holding the book, because it's just a little crooked. You know, I mean, I
haven't seen that. But there again, you've got look. This is the one thing that is probably a big misconception about me. I honestly have less than 2,500 comic books that I consider to be in my collection right now. That doesn't mean I don't add some and that I won't have more, that I won't be, above 2,400 come Monday. That's not what that means. But, and yes, I have more than that amount of comic books in my home right now, but I also have a flea market booth. And so there's probably 1,000 comic books that will never be in my CLZ at all that are going to be going to the flea market booth at some point. You know what I mean? So I don't have this like gargantuan collection. And the other thing is, over the last couple of years, I've really tried to target down my collection. And like with the promo stuff, I'll probably keep those promo books because I think they're pretty cool. But I'm not like a Nick Peters guy or a Tony Buck guy where I'm going into the dollar bins, and if it's cool looking, I'm snagging it up. I don't do that. I go in there and I'm hunting for specific things.
Well, see, and that's that's usually the way I do it too. I go in and I'm like, okay, I'm looking for something specific, but man, I'm a sucker. If I see something and I think it's cool and it's cheap enough, I'm grabbing it, because if I don't, I'm going to be thinking about it and I'm going to wish I had bought it. And then, yeah, so there's a buddy of mine that lives here locally, and he has, his whole basement is nothing but tables and tables and tables of long boxes. So his main room is Marvel and DC, and then his outer garage room is nothing but indie. And I don't know how many times I've been over there, and every single time I go, I find something new, because, there's some new indie stuff or there's some promo stuff that I just happened to not pay attention to last time, and then this next time it's like, oh, boom, there it is. So I end up grabbing it.
It's funny you say that, because I hit a garage sale with comic books last Friday before I started work, and I bought it was 4 for $1. How do you pass up 4 for $1 at that point? You know
I'll find something to buy at that point.
Yeah. At that point, I'm looking for practically anything, and I bought a couple of cool things. Nothing like no monsters, but a couple of things for friends, a couple of things for me. I ended up spending like $3. Not huge, not huge. Same dude at a different location, and he had added 5 boxes that weren't there last time. So guess who went to look through the 5 boxes, and guess who found another $2 worth of quarter books? You know what I mean? It was, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna dig through it. I'm gonna look for the stuff, and I'm a grinder. That's what I do, man.
Well, and that's a huge majority of my collection. I mean, I'm like Dennis Purish, man. I'm a dollar bin dirtbag diver all day. I love it. There's another LCS that I've been to where the guy has 3 sections of comics. He has his 50-cent boxes out on the main floor. He has his $3 boxes in one room. that used to be the porn room, and he got rid of that and replaced it with comic books. And then yeah. Well, it's you can't really let kids go into the dirty room, so you gotta clean it up a little bit. And then and I'm sure you guys have seen me make a couple of posts about this is the same store that has the pee room. He puts his $5 boxes in the bathroom. So you have to breathe through your mouth and dig through the boxes. But in the end, it's worth it because he's like 50-50 thorough on his stuff. So if you dig hard enough and you look long enough, you can find some good stuff. But I mean, he's got 50-cent boxes for days, and I made it a point. I told my wife, I said I'll be home after work or like 3 hours later, and I was like, you know what? Because I was going to his good stuff, and I said I'm gonna go digging through all this dirt and see if I can find anything decent. And I mean, I ended up walking out of there with some pretty good stuff as far as I was concerned. So 50 cents a pop, you can't really complain about it too much.
Absolutely, you can't. I mean, it's a good price. We used to have a place. It sounds very similar to that here in Springfield, and then we had somebody recklessly driving and ran into the side of it. And I this is the thing. It was called the Book Rack, and it was basically full of paperback books, but there were sections of comic books in there, and the guy had a current selection from Diamond too. So he had an account with Diamond as well. But whenever I say to you it was a fire trap, death trap combined, that you're not really sure if you're going to make it out alive, especially if, okay, I'm a big dude, okay? I take up more than than a normal sized person in volume and size, okay? I had to walk. I couldn't walk down the path this way. I had to turn sideways and go that way, okay? Because it was paperback books from the ground easily, and I'm like 6'4", so it was up shoulder high in a lot of cases, and like how this guy did not get shut down. Local people will tell you we really don't know how he didn't get shut down for breaking all sorts of codes. There had to have been a million code violations because in certain places it was really poorly lit, and I mean, just yeah.
So basically, one stray match would have just burnt the place to the ground.
Oh, 100%, dude, 100%. Because he had like the paperback like love novels that nobody's looking at, CDs that were like sold in book club form or whatever. So he had a bunch of those, but then he had what I called the long box wall of death, which was, again, I'm 6'4". I had to reach up. My reach is about, I can reach up about 8 feet high at my very tip finger but I had to reach up, grab a hold of the pull handle, and then slide it out, put my other hand up, and then set it down so you can look at it. But it was at least 10 feet long, and I'm not kidding. I have at least 3 guys that went with me at different points, and it was so overwhelming. They were there for about an hour and 15 minutes, and we're like, dude, I've got to stack this thick. I think I'm good. And I'm like, we've covered a third of the wall. What are you doing leaving already, And again, he had other stuff too, but like you say, he was hit or miss on what he was seeing. Like if it was Bronze Age or early Copper Age stuff, he was pretty on the ball with most of that. But if it was considered a modern book, screw it. 50 cents or $1, no problem, no questions asked. So the Adam Hughes Catwoman run, the only one I didn't pull out of there was the mugshot. That was the only one I didn't pull out of there. And some of those books go pretty high dollar. And it's funny because as crazy as that place was, a lot of his comic books were fairly high grade still, which is just crazy as could be to me, that you can pull high grade comic books out of a place that you're pretty sketch on whether you're personally safe in it or not.
But see, and that's where that's where being a grinder and digging around pays off, because you'll go into those dirty places that nobody else, like you said, it was a death trap, but it was a death trap with some gold nuggets in there. So you walked out with a smile on your face and you were still alive, and everybody
Heck
else
yeah.
is like, where did you find that? Well, that dirty hole you didn't want to go into? I went in, and guess what I found?
Yeah. I stayed there the extra 2 hours after you left, and you walked out with a stack. I walked out with like half a short box, and it was all just okay. So one of them that I found in bulk that you'll appreciate because you're a McFarlane guy. McFarlane's first work on Incredible Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
I found 10 of those. Found 10 of those. He didn't care. $1 a piece. Totally cool. And they were all in really, really good shape. And that's like a $5-7 comic book, something like that. So not a huge big deal, but where you find 10 of them, you know what I mean? That okay, I'll take those off your hands, no problem. But he didn't care. He didn't care. Who cares? I
Yeah,
mean,
and see, it's guys like that, like the dude I know. He like I said, he's usually on the ball with some of the older stuff and some of the more current stuff. But anything that's like super hot now because of movies or gonna be a movie, he could care less about. Like you said, he doesn't care.
right.
He knows most of the history on comics. He knows what he can make money off of. He knows if he keeps anything over a certain amount, he's not going to get rid of it. So he's just looking to unload. The problem with the store that I go to is that the guy doesn't advertise online. He's not on the internet at all. Takes cash only, so he doesn't deal with any credit cards. And he's in a town that is not even close to being any kind of comic mecca at all. I mean, like, you have to come. He's like half hour south of me, so he basically goes by word of mouth. And he's not even a comic store. He happens to have a lot of comics, but he's mostly like a trade shop, video games, DVDs,
Right.
LPs, vinyl, stuff like that. So it's most of it's word of mouth. And I honestly have no idea how this guy stays in business. I have no clue. He does, but
No,
he's got my business because I know he's a fair guy. He's more than fair, and to
that's
me,
basically.
that's money. So
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely. Look, I'm even willing to pay a little more. And we talked with Jesse James on the podcast recently about comic book fans will go where the comic books are. If you're going to set yourself apart, it's either going to be because you're giving an excessively good deal on your comic books, or your customer service is through the roof, or both. That's how that's going to work. And that's how you are going to stay in business and stay relevant, because it's a changing world, man. As far as comic book shops go, if you're not, it is kind of shocking that he's not selling online, because
he's weird. Like I've even mentioned it to him. He has somebody that managed, or he used to have somebody that managed his I don't even know if he has a Facebook page, but I know he had somebody that used to manage his like when you look him up on Google Maps and stuff, his Google page
right,
or whatever.
right, his Google profile.
Yeah, his Google profile, and he doesn't anymore, and he has no idea what the last time that his open and closing times were, because he doesn't care. It's weird, but I mean, and there's people out there who are plenty of them who are like that, where they just, he cares, but he doesn't. So I'm totally cool with him. I'll be more than happy to keep handing him my money. I mean, not all of his stuff is in primo shape. He has some stuff that's in the $3 and $5 bins that I would probably price a little lower, but because it's older, he throws it in there. But then again, he has some older stuff in there that doesn't even look like it's been opened, and he still only wants $3 or $5 for it. So, it's. I'll drive I'll drive a half hour down to him, and I'll sit there and schmooze with him all day, because I know I'll find a gem in there every time I go in there.
Right.
Especially as high as a turnover as he's constantly buying collections. He's actually looking to buy one tomorrow here locally. A shop closed down he's purchasing, or he might potentially be purchasing 300 long boxes from this place. And he's contacted. Well, I was in there not long ago, and he asked me if I knew anybody who wanted to buy bulk. And I've got a buddy who has the basement who's looking to buy some bulk to kind of bolster up his collection when fall and winter kick in and he can't hardly find anything. He's got some backstock. And told him I had a buddy I knew, so on and so forth. So if he ends up buying this collection and it's not been cherry picked, he's going to cherry pick a portion of it. Not all of it. He's not going to dry it out, but he's going to leave like $5 and $10 stuff, kind of gems hidden all over the place, and then he's going to sell them to my buddy for $20 a long box. And then, but the catch is you have to buy at least $200 or more worth of stuff. So
still
yeah, right. Still, he's. So I'm telling my buddy, and my buddy's like, "Well, I want to buy $400 easy," and I gave each other's cards to the other guys. They contact each other. If it goes through, we get first dibs. And I said, "Well, I got like $60-$80 to play with, which is like 3 or 4 long boxes." He was like, "Load them up in your car. Let's go." He said, "You help me load my truck up, and we're good." I'm like, right, "Yay!"
Yeah, man. Absolutely take advantage of that, because you and I both know how often does a deal like that come along. It just doesn't come along that often.
No, and I don't even care that he's picking through some of this stuff. I'm just happy. I've steered my desire more towards indie stuff. Mm-hmm. So if I find anything halfway decent, I'm happy. I mean, I just the thrill of looking through long boxes of stuff, I'm cool with. So, but it's stuff like that where you go to these little dirty places, or even the cleaner ones, and you talk to the owners and you get to know people, and then you start making contacts, you get information, and then you can lead to some pretty cool stuff.
Well, right, and that's Jesse James brought that up too. Is a lot of it is your contacts and your relationships, man. That goes a long way in the comic book community, and is worth its weight in gold, honestly.
And be fair too. I mean, just don't try to hose somebody over. You be fair. They see that you're being honest with them, and I mean, yeah,
absolutely, dude. Well, hey, real quick, I know that we're running up on time here at the end of the podcast. I got one last thing that I want to talk to you guys both about, and that's something that it's really come to a head recently, but has kind of been simmering for a while. You guys are both aware that Keanu Reeves has been approached to star in almost every Marvel film. That's I get it, that's probably a little tongue in cheek from Kevin Feige, but I can't see them not being okay with that. So in that vein, and I know that Charlie Hunnam, I believe is how you say his last name, from Sons of Anarchy, there are people trying to say that he would, and I don't disagree, that he looks like he would be a good Green Arrow. And then Dave Bautista has also commented recently on Instagram, or no, it's Twitter. On Twitter, that he would absolutely be open to playing Bane for the new Batman series that's coming out. So a couple of questions. Answer whichever one of them you want. But I personally am curious, who would you like to see Keanu Reeves play in the MCU? But then also, if you have a character that hasn't been on the big screen or even on TV yet, if you've got an idea for a character and somebody to play them, I'm interested in that. I will tell you, my personal pick for Keanu Reeves is for him to play Mr. Sinister. I think he has that look that would transition very well into a Mr. Sinister role. I know that he may not necessarily have the voice for it, but look wise, I think he could pull it off fairly easily. he's actually my answer to both. That's the reason I'm posing that question to both of you. And Josh, I know that we didn't really prep you on this one, but me
No,
and Todd kind of
I
talked.
was sitting there in my brain trying to figure out who.
No, you're cool. I'm gonna ask Todd that way you've got a little bit of chance to look through, because think it over some. Like you say, he's the reason everybody's considering it. We know is because of John Wick. Let's be real here. So Todd, who would you like to see Keanu play if you had your choice?
Well, I love Keanu as an actor, and I would love to see him in the Marvel comic universe. Like Josh, it's hard to try to envision who he might fit perfectly. And Josh, I mean, if I'm wrong, just let me know. If you have an idea of what you think he should play perfectly, I'm interested. But I guess if I had to take some guesses here, I mean, I think Moon Knight would be a possibility. And then, I like the guy that plays the Punisher on Netflix. But, I mean, with the whole John Wick thing, I could see him playing the Punisher as well. Although, like I said, I would rather see the guy that's playing the Punisher now. I can't think of his name.
John Barenthal.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's John. I always forget his last name, but
it's okay.
I would like to see him play the Punisher in the Marvel comic universe, but because they don't seem to want to pull those characters or those people over, I could see him as a Punisher possibility. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Moon Knight, because that's kind of like it that popped in my head for I don't know why, but now isn't Moon Knight, and I don't know much of anything about that character. Is he not based off Egyptian?
He does have some Egyptian lore to him.
Yeah.
He's also got multiple personalities. And again, I know just slightly more than your average bear about him. I've never really read any of his books. Mainly when I pick them up, I'm picking up the Stephen Platt run that's short printed because they're worth more, and not everybody knows that. but they're short printed. They've got some really killer covers to them, and so they tend to sell really well. But I just Moon Knight has not been a character that I've gotten that involved with.
I can definitely see Batista playing Bane, from what you were talking about earlier. I mean, he's got the build. I don't know if he's necessarily got the accent, because isn't Bane supposed to be Hispanic?
Yeah. He's supposed to be
Peruvian
a luchador
or something. Yeah.
He's supposed to be a luchador, but I really think that you can't. I mean, look, in the Dark Knight trilogy, they made him into basically a nondescript foreigner, for a lack of a better term. As far as they didn't give him a true ethnicity, really. And
so they could kind of blur that away.
They could blur that line a little bit, but I definitely think the build. He definitely has the build for it.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of underrated as an actor, but that's considering.
Well, I mean, he started out wrestling. I think he did okay in Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't seen any of his other offshoot movies. As far as I've ever seen, they've always had kind of a B feel to them.
Well, he's been in one of the Riddick movies, the last installment of Riddick. Whenever they were hunting him up on one of the planet, I like you say, it's not one of my favorite Riddick movies, but he is in one of those as a bounty hunter. He's never I won't say he's never a lead role guy, but rarely is he a lead role guy. He is normally the supporting actor guy. But
I mean, he would be Batman would be the lead, so Bane would be the
he would be the main villain.
Yeah, main villain. So he'd be sort of the supporting, but he'd still have a bigger role
than what he normally has had in the past.
Yeah, I think he could pull it off. I think he'd do all right.
Yeah, and I mean, Bautista actually he can talk, so he won't be just a big stupid Bane. Like the last Bane that we got was a big stupid Bane. Bautista at least has the ability to talk, so I mean, we could get a pretty decent Bane out of this. I'm not talking about the Dark Knight's Bane. I'm talking about the one.
I know you're talking about the other one, the atrocious Bane.
Yeah, I had to clarify myself. I'm sorry.
Batman Returns or something.
As far as Keanu goes, who he could be, I don't know, man. I still have to think about it. I'm sure I've got somebody in my mind, and once I flip through some comics and look online, I could probably figure it out. But off the top of my head,
it's all good. It's all good. I mean, it's just one of those deals where he's big news. He's been linked. People are saying the Eternals that's coming out is one that he's being linked to. There are people talking about the doc. They're essentially saying that any of these upcoming yet to be filmed Marvel movies, he could basically just call his shot there. Is basically what they're saying. And so I don't know. I do worry a little bit that if he's in a role too close to the way John Wick is, that people will kind of start to say, oh, it's just Keanu doing a derivative of John Wick.
Yeah.
I worry that they would do something like that. But there again, I mean, if he's going into the Eternals, that's not going to be a problem. But I at that point, I worry that you get such a star-studded cast with him and Angelina Jolie in it. And those are the only two actors I know so far that would be in it. I worry that you would get to that point that it would start to be, oh, it's Angelina Jolie and Keanu Reeves as the Eternals instead of just being the Eternals. I don't know. I think what's that?
I'd actually like to see Keanu as maybe the Silver Surfer or something. I think he would actually fit a character like that pretty well.
Yeah, but see, if he's going to play the Silver Surfer, like the last guy who played the Silver Surfer was kind of a nobody, wasn't he? In the Fantastic Four.
I can't remember who it was.
I don't know who it was.
Yeah, see, and that exactly. You don't know who it was. He was kind of a nobody, but he still. I mean, Silver Surfer could be anybody because he's basically covered with all whatever makeup or suit or whatever they're going to do CGI. So they could put a nondescript, physically fit dude in that role, and it wouldn't matter. I think if they're going to put Keanu in something, it's going to be something where you recognize him or you at least know that it's him.
And that's one of the reasons.
Whatever.
That's one of the reasons why I'm okay with him being like Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister has always been a relatively major late 80s, early 90s X-Men villain, but he's never been on the level of Apocalypse or Magneto, those kind of villains. And I think if you put somebody like Keanu Reeves in that spot, that's when you elevate that villain some too. But again, I know, look, man, I've seen polls on different Facebook groups and everything. People have gone from Silver Surfer to the High Evolutionary. I mean, just there's a plethora of different places they could go with him. I don't know where they end up going in the end, honestly.
It'd almost be cool if they gave him a character that is almost the nobody character, and they use him to bring that character more to the surface and kind of maybe expand on whoever it is. I mean, honestly, to me, that's like Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy was a nobody comic. I remember when they did like the other version of it in the 90s, it was like, okay, well, big whoop. And then I heard they were going to do a movie, and I'm like, really? They're going to do a movie with these guys? Nobody cares about these characters. And they blew it out of the water. I mean, they did an awesome job with it. So maybe they're going to put him in a character who's a nobody and kind of, breathe some new life into him.
Well, remember though too, pre-MCU, Iron Man was a B or C list superhero, and Robert Downey Jr. basically made Iron Man an A-lister. Like I mean, I don't think that there's any two ways about that. I would listen to somebody make the argument that he was an A-lister, but at the end of the argument, I'm going to be shaking my head, still saying no to it, because, I mean, the Avengers, yes, he kind of headed the Avengers with Captain America or with Thor. You know what I mean? It was never like, you never really got the feeling that he was. Well, and even then, think about this. In Secret Wars, Rhodey was in the Iron Man costume, and his whole spiel during the thing was, people are going to find out that I'm not the real Iron Man. That was his whole shtick during Secret Wars. So that kind of tells you that during one of the most major crossover events in Marvel history, and Tony Stark wasn't a part of it.
Well, yeah, he still wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you gotta kind of look at that and say, with the right actor in the right role and some good writing, and you could absolutely knock something like that out of the park. You could,
yeah.
But so your theory there is sound. Give him somebody that's like a C-lister and say, hey, make this your own. We want you to be this guy. It could be awesome. I just don't. But there again, like I say, I kind of think of Mr. Sinister as probably fourth in line of X-Men villains as far as Magneto and Apocalypse, and then the Sentinels.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Sinister. So you know what I mean? It's not like he's
Now,
like the biggest.
Mr. Sinister's that dude with the diamond in his forehead, yeah, and all the big
forehead.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah. I think Keanu has the angular face to favor him enough. Now, again, right now everybody sees him. He's got the long hair and stuff. He's got the full beard. You could do him. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to just go with the soul patch, but you could really straight edge his beard out and slick his hair back and because Mr. Sinister had that helmet-looking flat top from the late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, I remember
that was
that.
his thing, and so that's a very dated look to a certain extent. You can update that look a little bit, but still keep kind of the essence of the costume. And I think he could kill it, frankly. That's just my 2 cents.
All right. Well,
I think he did a good job.
On that note, we are approaching the 2-hour mark. We should probably wrap this one up. I will say, I did see one post with Keanu Reeves, and somebody had him as Dr. Doom, and I thought that was a pretty interesting one. We don't need to talk about it because we're on the 2-hour mark. So let's get some final thoughts. John, why don't you start us out with the final thoughts, and then we'll roll from there.
Man, right on.
Well,
go ahead.
I got to tell you real quick. I only have like 2% left on my phone battery. So
okay, give us your final thoughts, Josh. Go ahead.
Final thoughts as far as what? Just anything?
Whatever. Life.
I don't know.
Don't curse or be vulgar.
No. Seriously though. I don't know. I like this podcast. I like this is the first time I've ever done something like this. I thought it was great. The rule number 1, collector's corner. Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
It's that. Honestly, whoever came up with that rule, I don't know if it was Huffman or who, but it encompasses everything. I mean, it's an all-powerful rule. If you're not that much of a jerk, treat others the way you want to be treated, man. I mean, it's kind of a golden rule for the corner, and I think it's perfect.
I agree. Well, I will make mine really nice and short and sweet. Please interact with us through Podbean. Please interact with us through Facebook or YouTube. Tell a friend to listen to the podcast. Help us grow the podcast. We're not asking for Patreon funds. We're not doing any of those things that all these other YouTubers and people do. Just help us grow our listenership. That's what we need. And interact. If there's something that you think that we missed this week, leave it in the comments. Let us know. Maybe we'll pick it up next week. Todd, that's all I got, man.
All right, I'll make this quick. I'm getting attacked by bugs right now. That's what sucks doing this in the garage and not I gotta get my son out so that I can get his room and have my own little office. But yeah, Josh, thanks for joining us. I had a great time. Sometimes, like I'm sorry I didn't talk that much this one, but I really enjoyed listening to you guys. And you guys kind of teach me about things like promo comics, for instance, and I actually can visualize going into the shops and digging through and trying to find these gems. So I appreciate this conversation with both you guys. I'm gonna wrap this one up.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
All right.
Be good, guys.
Peace out, everybody.
All right, have a good one.
All right.